Hey, Elizabeth, how you doing?
Good. Hi.
So you're probably laughing because we were talking normally before, and then when I, go live, I then say that. And so maybe stunning to the guest, but not so much to the audience. Do you remember when our first episode was?
A long time ago. But
It was
not the date.
A long time ago. Well, I didn't know the date either, but I didn't know the year either, because I think I'm in the 400s as far as episodes go.
Oh my God. I think almost. It was 2018 or 2019.
Okay, yeah. It was 2019. It was episode 94. I went back. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I read the show notes, and it was a good conversation. I really, really liked that conversation. I always say this for returning guests, because I'm not going to ask you about all those fundamental things like how did you get into hair and
totally
this and that. And yours was a great story. I remember it, but I'm not going to go into that now. So listeners, if you care about Elizabeth's origin story, you have to go back to episode 94.
There you
go. Which was in the summer of 2019. That kind of felt like a song title or something like that.
This is crazy because they really do actually have to listen to that episode, because that's actually the year that my life radically changed. And I probably wouldn't even agree with half the shit I said myself that year, which I think is awesome to see how much we grow and change.
Sure. Well, I'm kind of curious. I mean, do you remember where or when throughout that transition in your life we spoke on that episode? Was that like in the middle or?
It would have been in the middle, because 2019 was the year that like my life got flipped upside down. And so it probably was before I started like on the path that I'm on now. It was probably in the like confusion, trying to find answers part, because I would have spoken differently had it been even later in the year, Of course. And that's one of the fun parts about having guests come back on, is that things have changed. I mean, how boring if it's like, well, you just go back and listen to the last one because there's not really anything else to talk about. That's true.
So this transition, these changes in your life, are we talking about professionally or personally or both?
Both. My personal life flipped my professional direction completely, which happens to many of us,
Of course.
Yeah, you can't change that much personally, and then it just all of a sudden what you do all day doesn't change at all.
Right. So tell us more.
Yeah. So 2019, I had built this really beautiful community in the hair industry. Our Hair Love community, we'd been doing retreats, we'd been doing workshops, courses, changed thousands of lives, spoken on many stages, been an ambassador for big brands, hairstylist for a long time, owned a salon, like all the things I was doing, I was building, I was creating, I was having success with. And I was personally really sick with some health issues and didn't know what was wrong. And I didn't relate my work life at all to my health issues. I didn't think they had any correlation whatsoever. And so I was going through some health issues that I had been going through for a few years, but they kept getting worse. In 2019, they no longer were whispering. They were like shouting and then screaming, where like you can only be so sick before you like are forced to look at it, And so that was the year I got really sick, and simultaneously the man who is now my husband, who I've now been with for 7 years, and we actually just got married in June.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. But he had struggled with severe depression and suicidal ideation his whole life. And his medicine stopped working that year. So right when I was in the middle of a health crisis, the drugs that were keeping him alive just stopped working, which is pretty terrifying. And turns out, your dose can only be up so much with certain types of medicine. And he was maxed out, and they put him on other meds, but they didn't work. And we did a DNA test, and they were like, the only medicine that works for your body chemistry is the one that you were on, and you're what's called medicine resistant.
Okay.
So you got to find another solution. And recommended, doctors and stuff, but like didn't have a solution for us. Yeah. So basically they told him he had to find a different solution, but they didn't have one. They just gave us some recommendations. And simultaneously I was really sick and I didn't know what was wrong. So what I was doing was going to doctor trying to get a diagnosis for my symptoms. So yeah, that was my 2019. I was dealing with the beginnings of arthritis, really bad PCOS, chronic migraines. I couldn't get out of bed. My joints hurt so badly. And yeah, I was walking down a path of just being really sick, and it got real bad where like I literally couldn't scroll, like, and I hadn't been behind the chair for years at that point. So like even like being an influencer was hurting my body, which is like kind of ridiculous because it's using your hands. Right. And not as much as hair by any means. Yeah. So that was the year that we got really open, really desperate, got brought to our knees to find health solutions. And that was the year that I started going on a healing journey. And that was the year that ended up completely changing my entire life and putting me on a path for school for what I do now. And so I really went from like business and life coach to for the beauty industry, to really having a bigger voice for well-being and mental, emotional, physical, energetic health as it relates to our businesses and our client relationships. And so next year, 2024, will be my 4th year in my study. And so trauma-informed, NLP, hypnosis, somatics, breathwork, sound healing, it really put me in a study of, almost 2 days a week I'm a student, and it changed everything in my company. I couldn't like speak the same anymore, coach the same anymore, host retreats the same anymore. I really had my eyes open to our health is our wealth, and it needs to be a part of the way we approach our business and sustainable success in our lives and really in the beauty industry. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's get back to that inflection point when you, I was going to say healed yourself. I don't know if you healed yourself or maybe, there's a series of things that you did, but what was the solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, a lot of different things, but the number one thing that has absolutely changed my health, and I had no awareness, like when I'm telling you, like I didn't know what trauma was. I didn't understand energetics. I didn't understand my nervous system. I didn't understand the mind, body, soul connection. Like, and my dad teaches yoga. Like I had been around a lot of things, but like thought of yoga as exercise. And I didn't realize my emotional health affected my mental health. I didn't realize that my mental and emotional health affected my physical health. Like I didn't understand the mind, body, soul connection at all. And because it wasn't my job to understand that, right? Like I was a brilliant businesswoman who could teach you how to make a lot of money, and a lot of times at the cost of burnout and the cost of your family. And that's what's interesting about our conversation, is a lot of it's really good and impactful, and a lot of it I might even disagree with. I'd have to listen to the whole thing, but I would never go back and teach people. And I taught a lot of people how to grow a very successful, wealthy business at the cost of a lot of things that I no longer would ever pay that cost in my life. And I do not coach to that anymore. And it took a health crisis for me. I didn't even know a different way was possible though. I thought to be successful, it had to come that way. And it took a healing journey and mentors doing it differently, who made a lot of money and were very successful, walking a different way. And I didn't even know I had permission to walk that way. And so anyways, a lot of it that changed my life was nervous system regulation and healing. And one of the biggest tools for that has been breath work for me. Being able to literally heal my body in that way has been so profound and life-changing. And I would have thought it was so weird, to be honest, like in 2019, and I was always like positive thinking and always had like an element of woo to my work for sure, like manifestation, but like basic bitch manifestation. Like I didn't really understand quantum physics and like the laws of the universe. I understood like you say it, you speak it, you are it, but didn't really understand what that meant or the science behind it. And being sick made me, I had to understand science for me to get behind it, to be honest. And I had to be really sick to get open to it. And that took me on a journey to being like, fuck it. Like, I don't even care. I'm this sick. Like, I'll try weird shit. And then later when I learned the science behind it, I was like, there's nothing weird about the way my nervous system works. There's nothing weird about, all of this. It's actually awesome. And my body's so intelligent. And this is a tool that I can use all the time that can literally help me be clearer, make better decisions as a leader, help my team, help my clients. Like, I understood why some of my clients would get stuck in my business program at certain points. I was like, they were having a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. Of course, they literally couldn't get through the spreadsheet module around numbers. Like, duh. But I didn't know any of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so give us a really good example of what breath work is. Like, how do you work on your breath? And we've had episodes on meditation. One of my best friends is a master, Buddhist meditation instructor. I'm sure I butchered her title, but I've had this. I know a little bit about it, but is this similar or different or what?
Totally. So meditation is a state. Breath work is a practice. And so what's really cool is we breathe, obviously, all the time, but breath work is to do it on purpose. It's to do it consciously with an intention, and intentionally there's different types of breath work that you can do that have different effects on your nervous system. So you could bring the energy up in your body. So for someone who's going to maybe have a team meeting or speak on a stage, or let's say you're an educator in the beauty industry, you might want to be a little more excited and upregulate your nervous system before you teach. But most of the breathwork techniques are going to bring us down. They're going to regulate our nervous system so we feel calmer, more present. So a little bit of science. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
of course,
most people listening have probably had anxiety. I'm going to say that there's a good chance you've experienced the feeling of anxiety at least once in your life, right?
I'm feeling it now.
Perfect. So anxiety is like future-paced fear. So we're having a fear that's future-paced in the future, right? And it might be about a client or finances or our boss or our team or the economy or the news or what's happening in the world or our kids or whatever that is. And so we're starting to have this concern that's future pacing. In the moment you're having anxiety, you might actually be in your car. You might actually be foiling someone's hair. You might actually be eating lunch. You might actually be sitting with a coworker. You're not actually in that moment that you're future pacing, but your body is. So there's a chemical released in your brain that sends down to your body, and you start to have that emotion in that moment. So even though you're not actually not getting paid the money, or the world's not actually ending, or your mom, kids, boss, blank, 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 in that moment, your body is going through that experience in that moment. And what happens is when we shift into that reality, our nervous system goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which most people are familiar with to some extent. And it uses all of its intelligent resources in our body to be in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, we actually do not have access to logic, reason, creativity, personal power, intuition. We get a little bit of it. But what's happening is all of our juice and our energy inside is being sent literally to our extremities and other parts of the body. Your heartbeat changes. Your breath starts to change. All these autonomic functions you don't have to worry about change. Even your hormones change. Cortisol goes up, right? All of that changes inside of your body, and you might just be in traffic in your car. So that's an example.
That happens to me all the time. I almost feel like you're describing my normal state of being. I'm serious.
Well, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, and I'm so excited. I actually had an anxiety attack hosting a team meeting at it's one of those places where they do hibachi. And I looked at my right hand, who she'd been with me.
Hold on. Is hibachi where they chop the food in front of you?
Yeah, the rice, okay. And they do, And so I took them all there, and I looked at her and said, I think I'm dying or having a heart attack. I need to go to the hospital. And this was in 2019. I had never had that big of an anxiety attack to know, but I couldn't breathe. And nothing was happening in that moment other than steak was being chopped up for me, right?
Right. But physically around, but not in your mind.
Right. So my body's literally going into this hyper, stress state and I'm not okay. So she starts to drive me to the hospital and I'm so worried. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. I couldn't talk. And she's like, just breathe. And she's not a breathwork practitioner. She's in marketing, but like whatever. So we're breathing and she's had anxiety. So we're breathing. And this is before I got it. It was right before I got into breathwork. And she looked at me and she goes, I'll take you inside. What's going to happen is they're going to give you some medicine to calm you down and they're going to make you breathe. But the medicine's going to make your body calm the fuck down. If you breathe enough, you'll just calm down and you don't have to pay for an emergency visit.
Right.
You're not dying. You're safe. And we were able to breathe through it and calm down. And I had had anxiety many times before that, but that one was the scariest because I literally like couldn't catch my breath. And that was really eye-opening for me to like feel my body shift from like, I'm having a heart attack, I'm dying, to just the words, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe, and pacing your breath. And I was like, wow, holy shit. I just like, my state changed so much in literally 15 minutes. So that's the power of meditation, is we can future pace ourselves into a panic attack, into I'm going to die. We can also future pace ourselves into a reality that we want to live in. The same way visualization, meditation is powerful. You can picture yourself on a beach, feeling the waves, feeling abundant, feeling safe. And those same chemicals that are being sent down to your body with fear can actually send safety, calmness, trust, all of that to your body, and allow your body to be in a rest and digest state where you're open, your nervous system feels calm, and your autonomic functions can work at their highest potential. And you actually have more power, personal power, because you have access to all of you. And so you have the ability to do that. So the power of meditation and breath really go pair together. And a lot of, like when I do breath work with my clients, I'll guide them sometimes through like a meditative process, or you listen to certain songs that kind of put you in that state. So they're very powerful paired together. Just like when you work out, right? They're like, find your breath, move through the pain. You're lifting big weights, you're stretching, you're, whatever that is, you're cold plunging. What are you doing? You're finding your breath. And so your breath is this really powerful medicine. It's cool because it's free. It's with you all the time. You can have a state change really, really fast. And when we begin to heal our nervous system, it's similar to working out. You create vagal tone, and it's not something that's...
what tone?
It's called vagal tone. So you have a vagus nerve that runs from up here in your throat. Yes, the vagus nerve runs up top of the throat to the bottom by your pelvic floor. By all your organs and important parts of your system. And when you hum, chant, sing, that's why singing in the car calms you down. When you do breath work, when you do things like that, it stimulates the vagus nerve and it will calm people down. So sometimes in meditation or breath work, they'll have you, and you can feel that vibration. Yeah. And that will stimulate that nerve. And with time, it creates what's called vagal tone. It's like tone in any other muscle of your body. If you work out, you get the benefits of that, just not when you're working out, right? You're stronger all the time. And if you do things for nervous system regulation more regularly, and the small things, even if it's 2 minutes of breath a day on purpose, you start to create a more regulated nervous system and body and more vagal tone, which is a benefit for you all the time. It can help with anxiety. It can help with emotional, mental health. It can help with physical health. That's what was crazy for me, is seeing what this did for my physical health. I was like, what? My autoimmune has anything to do with my nervous system? So much. Your body can't heal when it's in a constant stress state. It's not in an optimal place to regenerate, heal, recover at all. And so when your body, it's so intelligent and it can literally do all these things, when it's in a better state, it can do more of them for you. And you're not creating more disease in the body, you're creating more ease in the body, and your body is more open. So that's a quick science lesson of like, if you're like, I don't get it, I don't want to do it, I'm not woo-woo. You don't have to be. You really don't have to be connected, healthy, happy, whole, less anxiety.
This is not woo-woo at all, and I've never thought it was. And I play these. I mean, I'm going to use the term game. That's maybe an unfair term, but I play these games with myself every single day throughout the day when I feel those moments of, you were mentioning a litany of issues that everybody has before. And I, of course, like everybody else, has these issues. And so when a couple of them pop in, and of course I'm like, oh shit, that one thing, and the da-da-da-da, and I haven't prepared for it or whatever. And then my body gets all tense. I play those games where I trick my mind. Maybe it's not tricking, but I force through a couple different ways, and breathing is one of them. And having certain thoughts is another one of them, into calming down. And then when I can, and I'm saying this only because I don't know if I'm aligned with you on what we're talking about or not, and maybe you can tell me after I'm done talking. But I kind of am able to grab hold of my consciousness, my conscious thought, my pragmatism, my logic or whatever. And then I can logically say, okay, look, I'm not ready for it now, but I have time to get ready for it. Between 8 and 9 p.m. tonight, I'm going to prepare for the Elizabeth Faye interview, and I'll be ready for it when it comes the following day. And, that calms me down, because I then realize that there's no reason to be anxious about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, you're flipping your story. I think it's beautiful. And it's like when you have awareness around, maybe you're feeling discomfort or stress or pressure, right, in your nervous system, and you're able to almost like pull a release valve and release some of that pressure in the nervous system, so we can get a little more regulated when you're feeling dysregulated, and bring yourself back. And I think having awareness for anyone listening is the first key, right? Because a lot of times we have so many things we're just not conscious of, and they're fucking with us all the time. So that's where, talk therapy, life coaching, whatever groups you want to be a part of that can support you, bringing some awareness to our own, what we got going on in our head and our mind, our lives. And then using tools on purpose, like you said, consciously, to flip the script and not become victim of it, is so powerful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're shifting your state.
And as we're talking about it, I'm thinking, why this happens in us. And you were talked about some of that fight or flight, amygdala stuff, and it makes sense biologically and all that. But if I didn't have some of these reactions to just kind of my daily thing, I would get less done, right? Because to a degree, I need that little guy up there saying, you need to do this, because otherwise I would forget, or I wouldn't do it, or this or that. And as long as I can kind of regulate the proportion of the anxiety, or at least the knowledge that I need to do certain things, or I need to handle certain issues, solve certain problems, then it's actually a positive thing, I think, huh?
It can be. And I think I think this is something that shifted for me. And I mean, take what you want from it. Is I did have a story that there had to be a certain amount of sacrifice or pressure for me to be as successful as I was. I have changed that story for myself, and I do feel better. I really thought if I didn't have it, my business would crumble. And that was a lot of self-reflection and shadow work and fear for me to process. I now want to live my life more in pleasure than I do in pressure. And so that's something that, I really was like, well, if it's not a certain amount of hard, or it's not a certain amount of struggle, it's not going to happen. And so I have a book actually coming out next year, and the book's called Show Me How Easy It Is. And I did an experiment with myself in 2020. And so that's where I'm like, there's not a wrong or right way. It's really just what feels in alignment and what feels good. And I believe, I have a statement in my brand, when we feel good, we do good. And I really wanted to push the narrative of like, how good can I feel? And instead of like, when I do good, then I'll feel good. Like this earning or chasing for a later date, which I had done my whole life and built an empire doing. So I had rewards and proofs and just say this works. And so I'm like, okay, this works. Could it work differently? And I started having mentors who walk differently. And I was like, I'm going to try this. And I'm real scared it's not going to work, but I'm going to go for it. And so in 2020, I did an experiment with myself. And I had a statement written around my house, and it said, "Show me how easy it is." And it's the name of my book that'll come out next year. And it's all about a healing journey and personal development and spiritual development, and how it relates to our life and money and business and relationships. And I wanted to fuck with the idea that life could be easier, that things could have more flow, that there could be more ease, less pressure, more pleasure. And it was the edgiest, scariest thing I've ever done in my life, because everything I've built has really come out of a catalyst of force, pressure, struggle, sacrifice. It really has. And
you felt like you had to endure pain and anguish
to get the thing.
To get the thing.
To get the thing.
But you don't. That doesn't necessarily have to come along with it.
No, and that was I wanted to be like, is it possible that it's different? I don't know. I don't know. And so anyways, the experiment changed my life. I wrote a book about it, and I've led differently ever since. And so I think it's a fun question. I just think it's always good to question of is the voice necessary? Is it not? If the voice could have a different tonality or a phrase, would it be more useful? It's like a hypnotic framing. They'd be like, what's a more useful way? It's not judging it, making it good or bad. It's just what would be the most useful, pleasurable, purpose-filled, ease-filled way to go about this? And I think it's a personal answer, and it's a personal question that no one can perfectly tell you. But I know for me, I like to question it, because I've found a lot of relief on the other side and experimenting in different. So yeah, it's worked, it's good, and it might stay good, but maybe there's a different catalyst. I don't know, right?
Yeah. These are very personal things. You
totally
really drilled that home, but I'm going to say it one more time. These are very personal things, and everybody has their own tolerances and desires and goals and et cetera. But
so it's just
there
playing
don't
with it.
always have to be trade-offs. I kind of have a mantra that I say quite a bit, and that, the life is about trade-offs. And to many degrees it is, but it's not always a trade-off. You don't have to endure pain and anguish in order to be successful the whole way. But of course, if I'm at the office, I'm not with my kids. That is
absolutely.
a zero-sum equation.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be as painful and anguish-ridden as I think a lot of people, and it sounds like you felt early on.
Yeah. And that's been my journey and a lot of my clients. And I think a lot of people see themselves in it to some degree. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think, it's just interesting. And I think just finding your own alignment with it, if I feel good, could I do good? Could my feeling good be the thing that is the catalyst for more abundance? Like you said, obviously we have to leave our families to work, but is your work lighting you up, and do you love it, and do you serve people? And what's the amount of being gone that feels in alignment and also meets financial family goals that feels good? And that's your answer, right? To the person who's working way more than they would regret at their deathbed, then maybe there's a trade-off. Is it a season or is it a life that you're doing this for? Right. And so I think that can feel in alignment to say, well, for this stint of time, I'm going to go hard, and that feels in alignment, but there needs to be, a moment where I intentionally shift that. And I think, it's interesting.
Super cool stuff. And it reminds me of something that you have on your Instagram bio these days. You write, biz success that feels good to your nervous system. So what do you mean by that?
It means when we feel good, we do good. And it's really, there's something called the logical levels of change. And it's the idea that kind of shows us how humans change, how real transformation happens. And at the bottom of the pyramid is things like our environment, the people we spend time with, our skill set. And then as you move towards the top, it's more like sense of self, identity, values, purpose, more of those personal, spiritual development kind of things that we do. And the bottom's a little bit more like business and skill development things. And it talks about, this pyramid, the higher the pyramid. So if you start with sense of self and values, how everything below that will be impacted positively when that is addressed. And so really, I used to run my business and life, and so many of my clients really outcome focused. Well, this is what I want. This is the life I want. This is the car I want. This is how much money I want to make. This is the marriage I want. What are all the steps I need to do to make that happen? And, if we look at the logical levels of change, or more of like an inside out approach, we would actually start with like, what are the core values? What is the purpose? For what feeling do I want to have? When we think of manifestation, there's a feeling and a frequency behind everything you want. So if you want more money, there's probably maybe an intention of freedom or some other word. You have to insert that for you. So what is the feeling that you want to have due to that outcome happening, right? And so you would actually start with that first as like the foundation of your business. Or let's think if you're building a house, you'd want the soil and the frame of all of it to fit this as a culture of how you live, as a checkpoint of like, if this is not in alignment, then this actually doesn't feel as good as it could, and maybe there's a different way to go about it. And having your strategy and your business support that, versus at the cost of those things, we follow the strategy and the skills and the go and the do. So it's really just a heart-centered approach of like really looking at what matters most to you. And again, like we've talked about, that's different for each and every person. Like some of us want kids and families, some of us don't. Some of us want to travel the world. Some of us want all three. Like, great. Like whatever. Some of us want to be a huge salon team and a franchise. Some of us want to be solopreneurs and work from home and in a home salon in our backyard. Like there's such a big spectrum. But it's starting with those things. And so my whole program, where with business in the beginning, it was really about strategy, skill, goal setting, working towards it. It just has a different approach. It's really coming from the heart centered and looking at those things first, and then allowing the strategy to support it. Instead of waiting for our dream life to happen once we accomplish all these things, waiting to feel good once we climb the mountain, waiting to have, right, that freedom until then. It's like unlocking those feelings now and making sure what we're doing, what we're creating, and how we're being and working are all moving towards that, and not like this dangling on a carrot once we get there. Because I know for me, many of my clients, they've gotten there, and in fact, the workload's busier. They have a lot of clients, they have team, they have all this going on. And it sometimes feels heavier. They're like, oh my God, this is a lot of responsibility. I thought I would be fucking free. Like I feel more shackled down. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I work with. And ones that are running, some of them product brands in the industry that you would look at and go, oh my God, they're making so much money. They help so many people. And I'm like, they're really fucking burned out and tired. And they have a huge team, huge overhead. And so it's like we have to go back to those foundational things, and we really look at them, and we just realign and refertilize that soil the same way I would with a solopreneur business. And so it's like, I wish I would have known this 10, 12 years ago, or moved with it. And I've had to go back the last 4 years to my empire and like readjust some shit. And it's like if you hire someone in a people-pleasing energy, right? You're an overgiver because you're afraid they're going to leave your team, so you're overcompensating them because you're afraid they're going to leave, or you can't do it on your own. It's going to be harder, right? And it's a lot harder once you start to like, I'm not going to do that anymore, to go back to that relationship and adjust it, than it would be to start fresh and say, this is how I move, this is how I hire, this is how I lead. And so I had to go back and undo stuff, fix stuff. Some people left my team. Some people came in new. But it's fine. It was part of my learning. I think a lot of us learn through just life. And so that's what I mean, is like really helping entrepreneurs almost slow down to speed up, and showing them how to get full speed results without always going full speed, and building their business in a way that can support that. So that's what I mean by it.
Cool. And you do all this through Hair Love University, right? That's the name of your business. That's kind of.
And then my personal brand, I have courses and stuff too. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about your offerings, your services. How do you? I mean, you have lots of hairstylists who are your clients, and what types of things can they choose from to learn from you?
Yeah, so at Hair Love, we're a community-based education company, so there's lots of ways you can play. We're probably most known for our Hair Love retreat, which is a really well-rounded experience. You can learn, there's hair, beauty, actual classes at our retreat. We have business masterminding, business financial literacy workshops, and then we have more of the personal development. So we do a little bit of everything at Hair Love, which we've always done. Pre my chaotic 2019. That's just what we've always done. I just stand a little bit more on the well-being side than the business side than I used to. And I talk different about business, but that's an incredible place to start. We also have a movie on Amazon Prime about the industry called Hairstylists Change the World. I speak at hair shows. So if you're ever at one, I'm around. I do workshops. And then we have a mastermind called Sacred Stylists that is really built for beauty wellness pros to build their business in a more heart-centered way. We have people who are starting out. We have people who run seven-figure, multi-salons, and they're like, show me a different approach to business. So that's through Hair Love. And then through my personal brand, I also work with corporate and educators. So I'll work with corporate companies, or I have private clients that I work with who want to be in education or are in education. That's obviously something I do. And then through my personal brand, I now have a breathwork certification, which is kind of crazy because breathwork is in everything we do. And I actually, this is kind of the moment I started Hair Love, I looked at my partner and I was like, this is going to be a big part of my life. Like, I just know whether it's changing a lot of other people's lives or my own, like, I know this is a big deal in my world. And our breathwork certification we launched this year, it's called Glow Breathwork. We do breathwork in every container I do. Even when I speak corporate, I take a moment to make them breathe. And I've helped Biolage. I created what's called the Biolage Breath for them. All their facilitators are taking a moment of mindfulness when they facilitate. So I've helped lots of corporate different things.
I have to ask. So when you walk into a room of corporates, and let's say 5 people, and it's a big brand, and they've got numbers they have to hit, and everything is all structured and everything. How do you do the breath work? Is that, do you take like 60 seconds, 120 seconds?
So it depends the setting. If I'm on a big stage, because I work with schools, I work with Beacon, like I do a lot of stuff with corporate and schools. So if it's a keynote, it's like a few minute meditation with the lights dimmed in a video, and we might visualize our purpose or them stepping into whatever it is. If they want people to like own their own story or step into their purpose, or, it kind of depends on what the brand is looking for. Mm-hmm. So that might be something I do. Biolage specifically wanted to bring a more holistic approach to their educators. So sometimes with educators, I'm teaching them the awareness of the nervous system when they're facilitating. So how to help, they don't have to teach their students when they're doing hair about their nervous system, but they could pause when someone's overwhelmed and do a minute of breath with them, and the student would all of a sudden have more access to reason, creativity, logic, and they would understand what they're teaching better. So with Biolage, we did actually take yoga mats outside of the L'Oreal. It was their headquarters in LA, and we did a whole session. It was so cool. They wanted that though. So it depends on the brand, how holistic they are. But I had another brand reach out that just wanted me to stand on a stage and do it. So it just depends on the brand, how woo they want to get. I brought sound bowls for Biolage. They wanted to learn facilitation tips though, that were like understanding the nervous system and breath. And they want every educator breathing for a moment with the education class as part of their brand. So I created their curriculum and I made scripts for them where they're not breathwork instructors, but I said, you don't need to be. This is what you need to know. This is how you do it. It's very simple. It takes 30 seconds. So it can look like that. And obviously my own retreats, I can like do a whole session and stuff. But we certify people now, which is crazy because when I launched Glow, I looked at my husband again and I said, Glow is going to be a big part of our life. So.
Wow. So I have to go back and ask about your husband because you said that he was struggling to find a decent medication. Has he walked this journey with you?
Yep. He's actually the reason I got introduced to breathwork. And I'm not pro or against medicine. I'm pro people being alive, and whatever that looks like for you. I'm pro people being healthy. I think there's different medicines for different people at different times of their life, and medicine could be breath and medicine could be a pill, right? Medicine could be a doctor, medicine could be a shaman. Like I'm not one to say what that could be for you. Derek's been off his medicine since 2019. He's one of the happiest people I know. He's a phenomenal breathwork instructor. Awesome. He's a badass videographer. It's crazy. It's cool to see.
And he helped us with the audio on this podcast before we started, didn't
That's his original career. He's a video and audio engineer. That's what he does.
Yes. So I immediately said he's very useful. You don't kick him out of the house.
No. Yeah. So
That's
funny.
great. That's so awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, so we've got like 4 minutes left, unfortunately, but because this is so fun, I always like talking to you so much. Can you give us anything, give the listeners any sort of what's happening in the industry these days assessment? Anything you're hearing over and over and over again from the beauty professionals you talk to all the time?
Yeah, totally. Well, obviously the well-being side is a part that I care about. I know hairdressers since 2020. I just feel like the business side, people have leveled up a lot. I feel like people are leading their businesses, and I feel like the ones who weren't going to cut it, like, left the industry, and the ones who are staying are really leveling up and becoming really phenomenal business owners and becoming more literate, like, in everything, finances, business, systems. I think that's really cool and exciting. I feel like the, standard of our industry has just, over the last decade, really just, it's so cool. And I think well-being goes with that. I mean, that's where I put a lot of my voice, is in that space. And I just think from the schools to the corporate to the salons, people are caring more about the human and the holistic side of how we feel behind the chair, how our clients feel, how our teams feel, and really building a culture and an industry where when we feel good, we do good. And I just see this, like, even outside of my own community, there's just a consciousness and awareness since 2020 for vitality and health. And I think it's so exciting in an industry that has been known for a lot of, unfortunately, like, unhealthy stereotypes. I really think we're changing the narrative, and I'm excited for the next decade. Like, I think it's going to be really beautiful.
I super duper hope you're right on that. On the other side of the coin, if you could wave a wand and change anything about what's going on right now, what would it be?
If I could wave a wand and change anything, it would be that there's more accessible personal development, well-being, and health education for hairstylists from the ground up. Like, not later in their career when they're burned out and tired and need to figure out their finances and why they're so burned out later. I think that needs to start in the beginning.
I mean, it'd be nice if it started with everybody in the beginning, wouldn't it be?
Yes, but we do have schools we attend that could.
Grammar school.
I agree.
Or
I agree with that.
I mean, I've spent my life bitching and complaining about what we are taught in school, what kids are taught in school. And, it misses on so many levels, so many of the things that every single human has to do. And not just the mental well-being kind of stuff that we're talking about, but stuff like personal finance.
I agree.
It's not taught in school. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Things like
I think our education
taxes,
system has to change.
Things like managing a credit card, the things that every person has to do is completely ignored in school.
Yep.
Anyway, that's a different podcast.
I agree. It's a good one.
All right. Any last words for the community?
I think just you're going to flourish even more if you nourish and take care of yourself. Like, I promise, like, you're going to make more money, your teams are going to be better, you're going to be happier, your family's going to be more taken care of. And just, if you already do it, like, lean into it more. Like, how can you have more vitality in your life, and let that trickle into your bank account in other ways?
All right, Elizabeth, this was fantastic. For the listeners, hey, Elizabeth Faye on Instagram. Where else do you want people to look for you?
Hey, Elizabeth Faye is good, and Hair Love University on Instagram's great.
There you go. You look great. You sound great. You seem super happy. And it was really nice talking to you again.
You too.